Now I'm going to tell you a story, boys and girls, about an old cow that lived just next door to us when I was a little girl. And my playmates, our neighbors, had this cow, and we were kind of scared of it. And the name of the cow was Old Red. So the name of this story is the story of Old Red. Now, when we were little, our neighbors had a large orchard in their big field, and we like to go out there and get apples, eat apples. So if we could, we would climb their trees and eat apples all day as long as we were together. And we would sit up in the tree and talk and visit while we were together and enjoy all those good apples. And sometimes we'd be in one apple tree and we decided we wanted to taste the apples from the other apple tree, so we would climb down that one and climb up in the other one to have a different flavor of apple. So that was something that we did and we really enjoyed when we were kids. But our neighbors had an old cow, and its name was Old Red, and it was their milk cow. They got milk from it. But Old Red wasn't very gentle, and if Old Red saw us in the field, she would come running, and she was a dangerous cow. She would butt you or hurt you maybe. So they always warned us to stay away from her. Well, remember in the other story about broccoli, I told you that we lived on a farm and we raised all of our own food. Well, the neighbors raised their own food too. And they always grew a big garden, like most people did back then. And our family grew a big garden. But they had to be really careful with keeping Old Red out of their garden. So they would lock her up or fence her off to where she couldn't get into their garden. Well, sometimes Old Red would tear down the fence and she would get in their garden and she would go in there and eat most of their food. And they would have to replant if they had time. And if they didn't have time in the season to replant, they just had to do without that particular vegetable or whatever that Old Red had eaten or torn all to shreds. So anyway, that's how Old Red was, and we were scared of her. Well, they had a barbed wire fence all the way around their field, and from the side their house was on, you had to go all the way across the field to get to their orchard. So the trick is to watch for Old Red, and if you couldn't see her, then you crawl under the fence and you run as fast as you can to get to the tree, and you climb up it as fast as you can, because if Old Red spotted you, here she would come. Well, one day, my friend Carmen and I, we were going to go over to the orchard, and we had a particular apple tree that we liked a lot. It was our favorite, and it was easier to climb and easier to sit in to visit like we like to do and just talk with each other. So one day we decided to go over there, and we didn't see Old Red. So we crawled under the fence and took off running as fast as we could go across the field. Well, guess what? Old Red was in the barn, and she spotted us running. So here she came as fast as she could come after us. We ran. We didn't know whether to try to get back home or just go ahead and get in the tree. We decided just to keep running as fast as we could go and get up the tree, if possible, so that she couldn't get us. Well, she was running pretty fast, and we were kind of tired because we'd already run for a little bit. And so we did manage to get to the tree before Old Red got us. And we climbed up the tree, but she stuck her neck way up into the tree trying to get us with her mouth. And so we were kind of scared. We climbed up as high as we could go. We couldn't go any higher. Well, Old Red sniffed around there for a while and made some noises and tried to manage to get us, and we were really scared. So anyway, Old Red finally started picking the grass down there on the ground under the tree. Well, there were some apples that had fallen onto the ground, and she started eating those. So we would shake the limbs every now and then to give her some more apples so she'd stay occupied and leave us alone. And we picked us a few apples, and we sat there and visited for a while, but we we knew that we couldn't stay up there a whole long time that time because my mother had told me that I had to go home at a certain time, and we knew that time was running out. So we ate a few apples and talked for a little bit, but then it was time for me to go home. So we had to go down, and we knew it. But old Red was still there, right under our apple tree. And we were just little girls, and we could not figure out what to do about old Red. So we talked about it, and we tried to figure out what to do, and we came up with some different ideas, and finally we came up with one that we thought might work. So we picked a bunch of apples. We crawled out on the limbs and picked some apples, and we got them. And when old Red stopped eating and she started snorting around and coming back over there to check us and to bother us, we decided to throw those apples over by the other trees. So old Red was standing there watching us, and that's what we did. We started throwing those apples over to the other tree. But we were little and had small arms, so we couldn't throw them real far. But they did go under some of the other apple trees. And old Red ran over there to eat them. And when she ran over there to eat them, we got down out of that tree as fast as we could and started running. Well, old Red noticed us running, and here she came. She came right after us, and she was really close behind us. And we were trying so hard to get to that fence to crawl under it. Well, by the time that we got there, she was so close to getting us that we didn't have time to crawl under it. We had to just fall and roll under the fence to keep old Red from getting us. But we managed to do it, and we got away from her. And she snorted around a little bit and wandered back into the pasture, and we were safe for that day. But old Red sure did some mean old things while we were little. And maybe I'll tell you another one day about another adventure of dealing with old Red. But for now, I'll say goodbye and good night, and I hope you have sweet dreams. Good night.